Hey, welcome back. This is the video for the lab for Chapter 6 of Price Analysis, a Fundamental Approach to the Study of Commodity Prices. In this video, we're going to work with an actual WASDE report, and we're going to take a look and see exactly how those tables are put together. So I'm going to go back over here to our Compass website, and this is the written instructions for the lab for this chapter. And the first thing that it tells you to do is go to the USDA Office of the Chief Economist website and download the September 2017 WASDE. You can either follow the link, or just so you know for future reference, if you just Google WASDE, that will get you where you need to go. So I'm going to click through here. We're already at the Office of the Chief Economist website, and since we're doing the latest report, I can just click it here to get the Excel spreadsheet. If you're ever curious about other reports, you can come down here to the archive and click here, and I'll scroll down a little bit, and you can see old reports in here. So we've got the September report, August, July, June, and so forth. Okay, so let's download this Excel file. I'm going to open it up. And you'll see that this report is actually pretty big. We've got many, many pages, and if you click on a random page, you'll see a WASDE table. I happen to click on the soybean table. Page 16, sugar supply. Page 18, world wheat supply. But what we're going to do for this lab is on page 12. So click page 12, and you'll see the tables for the corn WASDE report. So notice on the top, you've got this kind of aggregate table that says feed grains. And that includes corn, wheat, milo, all different kinds of feed grains aggregated together. We're more interested in this corn table down here, but it's going to be a little bit hard to show you without keeping the column headings. So I do want you to just go ahead and copy and paste these column headings down here so we'll be able to see them easily. And let me just explain the next step. So let's remember what these column headings are. You know, the one on the right is the most recently released estimates. So this is the September report, and this says the September projection for the 2017-2018 marketing year. One column to the left is the report they released last month in August, and we can see that the yield estimate increased by 0.4 bushels per acre, and not a lot else changed, but there is some variation in the numbers from August to September. And then in the column next to the left is last year's marketing year estimates. And they are still estimates even though it was last year's marketing year, because especially in these demand rows, we're still getting finalized these numbers about use. So we're pretty confident about these supply numbers, but the use numbers are still being refined modestly. And the column just to the left of that is the 2015-16 marketing year, so like 2 years ago. And those are no longer estimates because we're pretty sure that we know what happened 2 years ago. Okay, so to proceed with the assignment, let's copy these numbers and paste them just one over. So what I want us to do now is basically go through and delete all the rows that are actually calculated from other numbers within the table. And that way, I hope that we will learn what sort of numbers have to be exogenously inputted based on survey or other methods that the USDA uses to go out and collect information, and what of the rows are sort of derived from the other stuff. So I've listed them for you in the instructions to this assignment, but we can figure that out too. So I'm just going to say that we can figure out beginning stocks and production. So I'm going to delete those two cells and highlight it so I remember which ones need to be filled in. And I'd like us to delete row 41, total supply, shade it in. Domestic total we can calculate and shade. Use total we can calculate, delete, and shade. Actually, feed and residual is calculated, so we'll shade. Okay, so let's start with the supply numbers. First off, I tell you that we can calculate, or we can find somewhere else, beginning stocks. And this is because beginning stocks of this marketing year is actually ending stocks of the previous marketing year. So we should be able to look back to last year's estimates in the 2016-17 column, look for the ending stocks number. It's right here. I will get it with cell references, so I'm going to type an equal sign and come over here to last year's ending stocks number. And last year's ending stocks is exactly equal to this year's beginning stocks. Okay, now production. That's going to be just the area harvested times yield per acre. So to fill this in, we just go equals area harvested times yield per harvested acre, and boom, we get our estimate. Now, here's the first time we have to note something important, or you'll freak out and wonder what you're doing wrong. So, note down here that there's this little note on the table that says totals may not add due to rounding. Okay, so that means that when we do this calculation, area harvested times yield per harvested acre, we don't get exactly this number that we're trying to come up with. 14,184, we get 14,187. That's totally normal. I promise we did it right, and it's not adding up because probably this number is rounded a little bit too much. Okay, remember this is millions of acres, so we could use 5 or 6 decimal places to be really accurate here. Okay, so just be aware of that, and then we'll know that if we get in the ballpark, then we'll probably be doing it correctly. But it is a little disconcerting that you don't get exactly the same number back. Okay, now let's see, supply total. Now we can calculate that. Total supply, remember, is beginning stocks plus production plus imports. So for this line, I can simply do this plus this plus this plus this. So sum these 3 cells together. We should get close to the number that we had here. Okay, so that's another thing we can derive, is total supply. Now, feed and residual, let's come back to that. Remember in the lecture I said that this is the only column that is really truly derived from everything else. So let's get everything else in line, and then we will come back to that. And the other thing to remember is that these 2 columns are not independent columns. Everyone's interested in ethanol production and its use of corn, so they give it its own row, but really this 5,475 is a subset of the 6,925. So when we're totaling together, for example, in this cell, we should include just the food, seed, and industrial category. So we need to go. Domestic total would be, I can do the cell reference even if I don't have it filled in. Feed and residual, that's a domestic use, plus food, seed, and industrial. And I'm not going to say ethanol because that's already included, seed and industrial. Okay, now let's get back to this residual category. Remember, it's supposed to be a measure of how much corn is fed to livestock in this country. And that's mostly what it comes from, right? But it's really hard for the USDA to figure out how much feed was fed because livestock feeding in this country is really, really decentralized. And that's probably one motivation for making this category feed and residual rather than estimate the quantity fed. So what that means is to get this category, we're going to take our total supply and subtract off all the other use categories plus ending stocks. And then this cell will literally be the residual left over after that. Okay, so I'm going to do equals total supply minus food, seed, and industrial use. I'm not going to do ethanol because that's already included there. And I'm not going to do domestic total because that's summing up those 2 things. But I am going to do minus the exports column minus ending stocks. So if I haven't messed it up, this is. So take a look at that one more time. It's total supply minus food, seed, and industrial minus exports minus stocks. And that's literally everything else that's accounted for, supply minus all other kinds of demand, plus ending stocks, which the USDA can estimate. We get this residual category. Okay, so now there's only one cell to fill in, and that's total use. So we can do that. total use is going to be the same as the domestic total plus exports. Get that? And that's really it. So this is not that involved a lab assignment, but it's a little bit tricky. So make sure you can reproduce this process on your own. This is an easy thing for me to ask you on an exam because I can pull one of these tables, delete some of the cells, and ask you to calculate all the stuff. So it's not hard, but if you don't practice it and really understand what each of those lines mean, it's really easy to get messed up. Okay, that's it. I'll see you guys next time.